Hey there, it's Dusty Thunder again, and I have another AITA story from Reddit for you. This one is, am I the astronaut for refusing to help my mom now that her husband is sick and throwing the past in her face when she pleaded with me? That's a lot. Let's find out more. My mom and I, 25 female, have a contentious relationship. We have been mostly estranged for the last 7 years. I say mostly because she has made some effort to stay in touch while I faded away. My dad died when I was 4. Mom and him were not married, but they were together. She leaned heavily on my dad's family for a couple of years. Then she moved us away so she could start a better life for us. After moving, she met John and married him. I was told more than once by John and by my mom that John was now my father, and I was told to call him dad, refer to him as dad with others, and not to correct anyone who used the term dad/father. I was to correct those who said he was my stepdad. I didn't want to do this, but I was punished, and John yelled at me multiple times for disrespecting his love, and I was berated and told he was stepping up to take me on as his daughter, and the least I could do is respect him as my father. That sounds like the last episode of Last of Us. When my mom gave John children, it became very clear he never saw me as his. I was treated differently. I was not given the same anything, yet the rules remained in place that I called John dad and would get punished for any instance of not. Mom always took his side, always backed him up, always agreed that he deserves some kind of respect for this stuff. I still have some bitterness over this. I didn't want John to be my father, but at the very least, if I'm going to be forced to address him as such and to correct people who spoke the truth, I feel like I should have been treated better at least. But that didn't happen, and I moved out the day I turned 18 and stopped speaking to or seeing my mom and John. She would reach out. Sometimes I would read or listen to hear her speak, but it felt good not having them around. Now John has been diagnosed with a neurological condition and my mom is caring for him. She asked me to come and help her, to help him, to help out their children. I refused. She told me she needed me, they needed me, and I'm their daughter. I told her I didn't care. I wouldn't help, and after everything they had done, they deserved nothing from me. I told her she failed me as a mother, and as far as I was concerned, they were already dead and buried and nothing to do with me. She said I was being unfair, holding on to the past too much and lacking in compassion. She tried to tell me to think of the good times. I told her she failed me. She forced me to say stuff I didn't want to say as a kid in order to appease her husband, who didn't treat me like his kid anyway. A family friend reached out after the disagreement and told me I should be ashamed, and while they were imperfect back then, they are still my family. And I piled on a woman who is doing the hardest job imaginable, caring for a sick loved one. Am I the astronaut? OP's dad died when she was 4, and they had kids of their own later on. They don't talk about ages. So she's 25 now. She moved out when she was 18. It's been 7 years. I think we can't really assume kids' ages on there. Sure that they're not really little. She didn't talk about her mom's age either. We don't know how old anybody but OP is here. We know that OP left when she was 18. That's it. We've heard some stories like this where stepkids were heavily mistreated, and then later on in life, that step parent needs their help of some kind, and they pull out the reverse Uno, and they're given the opportunity to execute some karma. That's worth something. In this case, I think, even though it would be great if OP could help her mom, she didn't have that bond. She didn't feel beholden to her mom, just like her mom clearly didn't feel beholden to her. She didn't feel that connection with her stepdad, like she wanted to help care for him because he never helped care for her. I mean, it sounds like provided her with food and shelter, and that was pretty much the basics of it. The whole forcing her to call him dad thing is weird, but they are definitely not your responsibility here, OP, and you get to choose who your family is once you get to break free from the constraints of the legal terminology of a family, and you're able to leave at 18. You at that point get to choose your tribe. This group of people obviously didn't treat you in a way that made you feel like a family, so be left, and I think you did the right thing there. Where I was going before with saying that even if you could help, the dangerous thing here is that you enter this cycle again of, if you did help and you stepped back into this, what makes you think that you would be treated any better? What makes mom think that she would treat you any better? What makes anything different here at all? The only difference here is that John's sick and mom has to take care of him, and now she needs help. That's it. That is the only difference here at all. We don't know how crippling John's neurological condition is either, so if he is still with it enough to be able to communicate, he's probably going to treat her like shit still. Maybe even worse now. If you want to have somewhat of a happy and functional life, you have to create distance between yourself and the people who caused you trauma earlier in life. There is no going back to that, I don't think. Tell me what you guys think, but I, in this situation, would not be going back to touch the hot stove again. she didn't take pleasure in telling them to F off. She didn't take pleasure in that. She said no to protect herself. That's completely understandable. And I imagine that putting yourself back in that situation with proximity would just make it worse and make it take even longer. So distance. I mean, what do you do when someone's taking swings at you? You back up. Don't let them land a punch.